Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Hello.
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 Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
David Goodison.
Gooder Davison.
Gooder David. John Goodman.
Good gravy.
Goodness gracious me.
Loch Ness gracious me.
Just Loch Ness. Bada bing, bada boom.
I see.
Yeah.
That was the Loch Ness game. Copyright The Benji and Nick Show. A pointless bit of nonsense. The
Bendy Clipboard Show.
Quickly explain what we do.
We basically talk about a variety of different cheeses, your camembert, your cheddars, and just rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. No, we talk about cult television, we talk about all sorts of things, TV from the past, TV from the present, things you've forgotten, things you remember, and things you'd rather forget. We cover it all.
Buses.
What sort of elements? We've got what kind of elephants? We've got lots of different types of shows, haven't we, Nick?
Yes.
Just go through what sort of bits and bobs we do.
Sometimes we do a commentary, usually of a Doctor Who episode with incidental music by Gary Blyton. Well, so far anyway. We also set ourselves the task of watching something between the podcasts and the next time we talk about it. Or we just talk about the things we've been watching recently. And that's what we're doing in this podcast. We'll also be reading out some of your emails to us sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com and some of the Facebook messages we asked you to send on Nicholas Briggs Official and the Benji and Nick Show. I'm losing my voice. What is our Facebook page called? Benji and Nick Show?
Facebook.com/ I think it's just the Benji and Nick Show. I'll double check.
Not Cult TV or something? No, was that Twitter?
No, none of ours are that. Facebook.com/ the Benji and Nick Show. Twitter is Twitter. I think it's just at Benji and Nick. Actually, I'll double check though.
Well, no. What's our Twitter page called?
Twitter one is at Benji and Nick.
Oh, right, okay.
It's very personal, is it? That's what I like. Just send a message to Benji and Nick.
But what is the page actually called?
The Benji and Nick Show, but our Twitter handle is at Benji and Nick.
I'm sounding so clueless. But what is it actually called?
Who are we?
So, should we look at Facebook first?
Yeah, let's look at the book.
Oh, we'll also be talking to Jamie Anderson later, if he's in. Jamie Anderson, the son of Jerry Anderson, who we like to talk to for no good reason. And we don't really even say anything particularly intelligent to him. That sounds very promising, doesn't it, as a part of the podcast?
Well, we don't masquerade our talents, do we? We just tell you what we're about, and that's it. And if you don't like it, you don't.
So Jamie Hailston says, it's worth noting that the Hellfire Club, in a Touch of Brimstone episode, this is the Avengers because we're going to be talking about the Avengers this week, inspired the Hellfire Club in the X-Men Dark Phoenix saga. There's even a character called Jason Wingard in the comics who looks a bit like the late great Peter Wingard who stars in the episode. How about that?
That is an interesting little fact, isn't it?
We're also going to be talking about Shadows later. Benji is, because you've been watching that, haven't you?
I have been watching Shadows.
Spooky show, Supernatural. Jenny Shirt says, I adored Shadows and I've just bought the DVD set at 25 minutes each. They're great fun. Maybe a bit too slow for nowadays, but I love that.
Yeah, I can totally go with that one. Well, I've got a couple of questions as well on bits and bobs. One of them here, Tom Hodden, good old Tom, says, would you rather be the only person always dressed as Batman or the only one not dressed as Batman?
Is that an email? That's
not in an email, that's in a comment, a Facebook comment.
I don't know, what would you rather?
I'd rather be the guy dressed as Batman. Why wouldn't... Because you're never going to get negative... Nobody's ever going to be like, who's that guy dressed as Batman? They're always going to be like, oh, look, everyone, it's the guy that's cool enough to be Batman. But it would have to be the Adam West Batman. I couldn't go as any of the others. Well, it's the only one that looks comfortable, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. It's quite embarrassing, though, those tights, aren't they?
That's all right if you can pull it off.
What, your tights? Shane Dunphy, our good friend Shane Dunphy, says, love the Avengers, original and new. I also like to presume that was Steed alongside Roger Moore's very decrepit Bond in A View to a Kill. Thoughts? He is in that, isn't he, A View to a Kill?
Yes, he is. Do you know what? I'd never really thought about that. Yeah, yes, he is.
It's interesting. John Dorney comes on and says that he always thought that Roger Moore's Bond, and to an extent the subsequent two, are heavily influenced by Steed, put through a book Bond filter. Would the panel agree?
I can kind of see that, actually. I mean, I think Roger Moore's Bond is a mixture of, there's some Simon Templar in there as well, and there's
obviously
there's lots of kind of little nods, isn't there? But I think a lot of it is just Roger Moore, isn't it? Really.
Roger Moore's acting persona. Gareth Lloyd says it may be controversial, but I prefer the new Avengers to the Avengers. Well, we can discuss that later, can't we?
Interesting comments. Yes.
Any other comments on Facebook that you wanted to tell us about?
I've got a couple on Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah, Twizzle. We got one from Richard James. I said, has anybody got any questions? Richard James here. What's the fastest land mammal? Nick, any idea?
It's that cat, isn't it? It's the
cheetah.
Yes. No. Is it? Yeah. No.
I would go cheetah, but I guess maybe I don't know.
What is it then?
I don't know. I'll have to Google it. It's all very fascinating.
Well, I think it's a bit much for Richard not to answer. He's trying to sabotage our podcast.
It's cheetah. Fastest, or it's the cheetah. Yeah, fastest
land 73
mammal.
miles an hour or something?
It goes 68 miles per hour recorded speed. That's very fast, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was something in that region. 73 is not far from 68, is it?
We've got one here. Duncan and Polly. Lovely Duncan and Polly, who we just saw recently at Big Finish Day.
We did, yeah.
Always a pleasure to see you both. They were wondering which actors could play you both in a movie. Who would be your choices? Nick, you first, anybody?
John Cleese for me.
I'd like that. Yeah, John Cleese would be good.
What would you be?
I don't know. I'd like to have Jack Black play me. I think that would be that'd be a damn good one, wouldn't it? Although if it was going on was not so much anymore, but certainly when I used to be clean shaven, everywhere I went, people would always say I look like John Belushi, and I used to get people buying me drinks because I looked like John Belushi. It's like when I went to Chicago TARDIS, and Gene, the guy who runs it, he said to me, yeah, maybe next year if you come back, you can get the suits and the glasses, and you could do the Blues Brothers. I was like, yeah, I'm not a Blues Brothers impersonator, although
tribute act.
Although I have been asked to be in one before. We got one here. Are you going to watch any more episodes of Thunderbirds? Now there's a question. I don't see why not. Certainly wouldn't rule it out.
Not today.
Not today, no, but I certainly wouldn't rule it out with a ruler.
What? No.
Well, I'd use a straight edge thing like a biro or
a set square.
A set square. Gosh.
Yeah.
Gosh.
They're not square. Someone mentioned that the other day on television. Okay. First email. Shall I dive in?
Dive in straight away. You got your swimming goggles?
Yes. It's called Thanks Guys, 3 exclamation marks, although a space before the exclamation marks. I'm not happy about that. Sent at 9:23 on the 8th of July from Chris Garrard. Hello, Benji Nick. Thank you guys for yet another great podcast. I thought I would get in touch to tell you how much I really enjoy the show. Oh, thank you very much. How much do you really enjoy the show? Really? Every week I would create mixtapes for my car journeys to work using Spotify. But these days are over, as I prefer to listen to your show. Hey. Oh, that's great. Your highly entertaining and hilarious conversations are a pure joy to listen to. Wow. My fiancé and myself have had quite a rough time with life over the last 2 years, and your show helps me soldier through. And for that, I'm very grateful. Oh, God, it's so lovely to hear that, actually. Well, we're so So pleased that our wittering has inadvertently served some useful purpose. I'm really pleased about that. If you are ever in the Essex area, then I would love to buy you both a beer or two. Wow. Thanks, Chris.
You never know with me and Nick. I mean, we wound up in some pretty strange places over the years, haven't we?
I don't think is Essex strange. Just imagine us turning up in Essex and just getting out of the car and going, Chris!
Where is my mead?
Keep up the excellent work, gentlemen, as your efforts bring a lot of happiness and joy to many people, especially me. Take care, you guys. All the very best, Chris Garrett. Sent from my armchair on my outdated Android phone whilst my fiancée soldiers through season 3 of Stranger Things before our Netflix membership runs out at midnight. Blimey, I'm going to mention Stranger Things later, actually.
Well, I'm so glad that our mindless chaos, wittering, and nonsense helps you get through things. It's a good escape. We often look to this podcast as a way to escape the madness of our own lives. Chance just to talk and let rip, I suppose. Really, let it rip.
Yeah, it helps me.
Well, we got one here. New message from Arlo is the subject there. Hello. My name is Arlo. I'm a 15-year-old from New Zealand, or as Wurzel Gummidge would say, Zoonealand. I just listened to your podcast about the Tripods TV series. I agreed with some of the things you said, but disagreed with what you said, with what you guys said as well. Nick in particular, but that's fine. I know both your work at Big Finish and you do the Missing Adventures range for Doctor Who, and that got me thinking about what if Big Finish, which is an audio drama company that we both are involved with, did an audio version of the Tripods Series 3 for the whole trilogy. So my question is, ignoring all the copyright stuff, would you be interested in doing the Tripods trilogy or just the 3rd season on audio? If so, how close would it be to the books and TV series, and would you make it more action-packed, as it is very slow and calm in places? Well, one thing I would say really quickly is this is we can put the controversy thing on there, is I had a bit of a not a falling out, but a sort of slightly heated conversation with a dear friend of mine, Robin, who played Fritz in the Tripods, and he was quite unhappy about about hearing about our review of the Tripods.
But you were totally in favour of it. It was me who was being rotten.
Well, I've always loved and supported the Tripods.
Yeah, you really stood up for it, and I kicked the legs from under them,
and they fell over. So and I just want to really just say, I do love the Tripods. I mean, where we came into the real tip of it all was we were talking about the second series of the Tripods, and how I'd said that I preferred Series 1, which is true. Doesn't mean I dislike Series 2, but it's... You
see, I thought that Series 2 was vaguely more interesting because at least there was more alien stuff in it, even though that was pretty laughable. But I don't prefer either one. They're both rubbish.
I think Series 2 is impressive, but for me, the appeal of the Tripods that I loved in it was always the exploration and all the real adventure elements of that. And so
running around in forests.
In forests and fields.
That's right.
and
when I FaceTimed you the other day, I thought you might like it because I was walking in the countryside.
Well, I could
walking
hear,
back from having dinner.
I could hear Ken Freeman's music as you were walking along. So, I would say that all the episodes when they're out and about, I love. But when it gets very bogged down and you're kind of 3 episodes into the being in the same city, I found my mind was wandering at times. But by no means do I dislike it. I adore the Tripods and
quite right, you absolutely do. I know you do. I mean, I think you're mad, but you do.
So I just really sorry if I upset you, Robin. But hopefully you'll know that I absolutely love the show.
Yeah, he loves it. No, don't give me jip about it. Not poor Benji. But back to what Arlo's saying. I mean, I absolutely think, ignoring all the copyright stuff, which is insurmountable, I believe, at this present time. Anyway, I would love us to do the Tripods because it is beloved. People do love it, and to do the 3rd series would be great. But I think if we were going to do it, we should do it all. I know Jason Haig-Ellery, who loves those books, and he's the chairman of Big Finish. He would love to do it, and I'm sure he would, come to a production meeting and say, we're doing this now, I've got the rights, which would be fantastic for us, I think, and make so many people happy. And it would make me happy too, because my issues with the TV series are to do with the TV series, although as I keep going on, I can't understand how the author wasn't sued by the H.G. Wells estate. But that's all over now because H.G. Wells is out of copyright, so there you have it. But
yes, it's owned by Disney now, isn't it? So really, it's untouchable.
I think that, I think we'd go back to the source material and see how that could be adapted, and maybe with a view to making it more intense. And it's not whether something's boring or not. It's not to do with how much action is in it. It's how much the characters can engage you and how much you invest in them. So it doesn't matter whether the characters are just talking, arguing, walking through a wood, or being chased by a tripod and shot at. It's all down to how you do it and who's doing it and how good the actors are and how good the dialogue is. All that, he said, as if he knew something.
Well, I think with the tripods, and I personally would go on the sort of absolute middle ground on this one, in the sense that I would love a third season of it, continuing from the TV series, because I always felt the way it ends for me, it was heartbreaking the way it ended, with the characters looking on at the place where the White Mountains where man is free, to see it in flames and to then say, has it all been for nothing? And that is where the series ended. And that was it.
It was all for nothing.
It was all for nothing. And so I would like to.
It was terrible.
I would like to kind of take it on there, but what I would do is I would keep the cast, keep that strand, but I would amp it up a bit. This is now things move on. You've been to the city of the tripods. You've upset all that lot.
I'm not keeping that cast, mate.
Well, that's
half the problem.
I
most of the problem, the cast.
I love them.
Just to upset your friend again. Yeah, it's just terrible.
I love them all, and we'll defend them.
Well, it's to do with nostalgia and when you first saw it and all that, isn't it? There are loads of things that I love that I'm sure most people think are absolute rot. Anyway, here's another note from Tom Hodden to our Facebook page. The Benji and Nick Show Cult TV Podcast is what the Facebook page is called, it says here.
Oh, I suppose, the little...
That's what I kept saying. What is it called?
That's the name on there.
Yes,
not the
that's
link.
what I mean. No, I wasn't talking about the link.
The tune,
I was talking about the name.
tune.
The tune, yes, the drums. We're talking, honestly, it's not worth going into. Thomas Hodden. Gents, would you rather watch the Dalek Master Plan overdubbed with the soundtrack of Brookside, or watch Brookside with the dialogue from Dalek's Master Plan?
Obviously the first one, just because I'd like to watch the Dalek Master Plan. I probably know the audios well enough to just forget the soundtrack of Brookside.
You could redub it yourself, couldn't you?
But I like the soundtrack of Brookie. They've got a lot of time. If you can actually find on the on-demand things now, is it Channel 4 that did Brookie, or Channel 5?
Channel 4.
Channel 4, yeah. There's old Brookie on there. Go and have a look.
Have Brum or the Teletubbies as your flatmate. Brum is a model car in a kids series, and the Teletubbies were silly, bouncy, colourful children's TV characters.
We'll obviously have Brum because he could go in the garage. He wouldn't take up room. Also, need to nip
Brum's
down...
not as irritating as the Teletubbies.
Oh.
Again, boom,
I suppose
la la.
The only good thing about the Teletubbies is they do come with their own Hoover. It's a Hoover with sentience. It can go, and you can just say, do you mind giving the bathroom a quick whirl, and it will go and do it. Whereas, although that said, with Brum, if you needed to nip down the shop, you don't need to go with him. Just say, look, mate, do you mind just driving down to, I don't know, Asda?
He's not annoying, is he? Brum's not annoying.
Well, no, he's not that annoying, is he? Really?
He doesn't speak. He doesn't say stupid things. He just drives around a bit, doesn't he?
Does a few good deeds. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Can't
no, Brum
just drives around a bit. He just drives around a bit.
There's no proper story. There's no psychological development in the scripts. Have to communicate only through GIFs or talk only in a Dalek voice.
Oh, come on. I think we all know the answer to that one. Talk only in a Dalek voice.
Because there are subtler Daleks, he said, tongue in cheek. Have one squirrel the size of a polar bear, or lots of squirrel-sized polar bears.
Lots of squirrel-sized polar bears, because polar bears are ferocious. and utterly horrific. Whereas if they were smaller, they'd be really lovely and cute, and just, you know, and give them bits of carrot.
See David Attenborough do magic tricks, or Sooty and Sweep narrate The Blue Planet.
I want Sooty and Sweep narrating The Blue Planet, which features David Attenborough doing magic tricks. I want the whole shebang, because all of that is too good to miss.
Well, yeah, I want the latter, because I just think it would be funny to watch The Blue Planet, with especially the bits narrated by Sooty, who, of course, you wouldn't be able to hear. He's just whispering in Harry Corbett's ear. Because I suppose David Attenborough could be the Harry Corbett replacement. What did you say, Sooty? What Sooty says is that this glacier will be... Anyway.
Don't forget good old Matthew Corbett, though, from Matthew Corbett from the 80s and 90s. Love him. Always. I want to
Not
buy
my
him.
time.
I want to buy Matthew a drink purely because he seems like a good egg.
But then he sold it all to someone else, didn't he?
To be fair, though, the guy that has it now, absolutely, that was his life, is that he wanted to do that. And so, to be fair, you know, who are you going to sell it to?
He's happy now.
He's happy now. You know, who are you going to sell it to? Somebody that loves it, or somebody that loves the idea of it to make money?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Anyway, T.E. Hodden says, "Inquiring minds must know." Well, now you do. There we are.
Interesting thing, quickly on the subject of Brookside. This is just I found this quite amusing.
An interesting thing on the subject of Brookside. I don't see how those two things relate.
Well, it's quite funny that there is a in America. There's obviously the WWE, huge wrestling company. There's an English wrestler on there who's called Robbie Brookside, who's got a daughter. I can't remember her full name, but it's something Brookside. But he directly got his name from the TV show Brookside. But of course, all these Americans, they would not even know that. So they're all talking. Wouldn't. You know, they're talking about these legitimate fighters, like so and so Brookside is in there. And of course, it's just so funny, because I'm sitting there like, yeah, you have no idea. You're just sitting there waxing lyrical about Brookie.
Like having someone called Bobby Crossroads. Or
Bobby Crossroads, yeah.
Fred Coronation Street.
Yeah, John Rover and the Rovers Return, which sounds like a great band.
Benji, it's time to talk about what we've been watching. Tell us about Arthur of the Britons.
Well, first of all, just to say, the latest thing I've been watching is Game of Thrones, actually. Sat and watched 5 episodes of Game of Thrones in a row last night. Wow,
this is it must have reached that point where it's old enough for you to watch it.
Reached the point where so many people kept saying to me, have you watched Game of Thrones? And I kept saying, I've watched like 2-3 series of it. And they're saying, oh, you must watch more, it gets better and better and better. So I just thought, well, I've got the whole collection.
You've watched 2 or 3 series of it?
Yeah, I'm like halfway through the 3rd series now.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I didn't think you'd watched it at all.
Well, you know, it's when it's swords and dragons and stuff, I can't really help myself.
My answer is always, no, I haven't, and I never will.
I see. I want to. I love it, and I want to get into it. I find that the problem with it, is there's too many characters, and there's too much going on, and you sort of need need an interpreter to kind of say, and this person's related to her, and they want this and that, and I think it needs streamlining. It's thoroughly enjoyable. Not as good as Vikings, though. Vikings, less going on, but it's real history. But yeah, so that's the latest thing I've been watching. Thoroughly enjoying Thrones, though. But yeah, Arthur of the Britons, swords, madness. Brilliant. You can get this soundtrack on Spotify. What more do you want? I've got a lot of time for Arthur of the Britons.
Oliver Tobias, great leading man.
I love Oliver Tobias. He's a great guy. Sells the whole part completely by being, great authority figure. Interesting. So I was talking to you about this, Nick, the other day, and saying that it's interesting how different episodes have different sort of stand for different things. There was a whole episode I watched that was brilliant. Barely, not a lot of dialogue in it, about the two of them, Arthur and this other character, and they want to outdo each other. Who's the best? Who's the one that can? Who's the best at archery? Who's the best at sword play? And it starts off as a friendly game, and it ends up with them trying to kill each other in the middle of a lake, like children fighting, and it was brilliantly done, because it's that.
Do children fight in the middle of the lake?
Well, kids get muddy, don't they? When I was a kid, I once pushed
checking the facts.
I pushed my friend into a pond when I was little. Well, boating lake, for model boats. I was one of my darker days. we did have an argument, and it was funny, and he was in his school uniform, which made it even funnier. But it was, so this is a great episode because they didn't need to have mindless dialogue to make it incredibly good. Fast forward to the next episode, and I turned it off halfway because it was just people just whittering on and really overdoing it in their characters, and it's so boring. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. One episode was so engaging with barely any dialogue, and this episode is so disengaging because.
How did you choose them? Did you just look at the titles and think what you fancied and popped in?
No, I was just going along. It was in, I can tell the episode names. Hold on.
What did you have you seen the one with Tom Baker in yet?
No, I've not got to that one yet.
Playing a pair of twins.
It's got legend status, that episode, isn't it? It's a legendary one.
I think it was just before he did Doctor Who, actually.
So the first one I watched was called The Challenge. The rivalry between two Celtic leaders endangers the Celtic defence. Is it that one?
No, that's not the Tom Baker one.
No, not the Tom Baker one.
But that sounds like the one you're talking about, yeah.
I think it must be, yeah. And then the following one was the Penitent Invader. The Picts turn out that being the real danger for the Celts. But it was just very. I just found you went from one thing which was incredible to something very mundane, and I thought we need less of the mundane and more action and more people being cool cats,
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I've been watching a lot of recently is Shadows, which is old 1970s, bit of a Twilight Zone, bit of a Tales of the Unexpected, but for kids, and a sort of dark, gothic-y horror sort of feel to it. And I think they're great fun. They're a little bit, they have, at times they can be a little bit ridiculous and a bit shoddy, but ultimately they're really good fun. I mean, there was a great one with Gareth Thomas in it, who you could tell they just had him for like half a morning in to record these location things.
Before he went to the pub.
Yeah. Definitely went to the pub. He just played like a PE teacher in that, and I thought that's a nice little jolly for him, isn't it? Like, do you mind just popping in? All you have to do is kick a ball. Oh yes, all right, yes. But great, great fun. A lot of child actors in this one actually, who do quite a good job. Especially in his episode, the two kids are really good and they don't act again, but they're very good. But I like it because there's sort of every story is a little bit different, and the twists, some of them are really bleeding obvious, but a lot of it's quite good fun.
Yes, I actually watched one the other day because you were recommending it, because I've been recording it and they're all stacked up there on the hard drive. And I saw the one, something about a witch in the bottle or something. They go to a house.
Yeah, the uncle's house.
A brother and sister go to stay in the uncle's house, and the uncle's never there. And then they go out in the garden, and the girl thinks she's being burned at the stake. And then they find out there was a witch whose ashes were put in a bottle and buried. And she lets them out, and then she gets witchy powers at the end. And there you have it. I've just told you the whole plot.
That's the whole plot. Yeah,
it's quite well done. What lets it down actually is some very mediocre acting.
That one in particular, I felt the twist at the end wasn't delivered as good as it could have been. I would have liked it to have been delivered in a way that, for example, she gets worked up or angry and then does something and realises that she does have powers and then immediately regrets it. Like
the girl was the worst thing in it, wasn't she?
She was dreadful.
Funnily enough, though, when she became the witch, she was a tiny bit more convincing. But playing a normal human being, which made me think that maybe she was just a witch.
Maybe she was. But whereas the woman next door, the herbalist, that one, she was great. I really liked her. She was excellent.
She certainly had a good line in Staring, didn't she? I rather thought it might have been more fun if it was revealed that I was waiting for them to say to the uncle, oh, that woman next door, and him to say, but the house next door has been empty for 50 years.
Yeah, or it burnt down. The house
it wasn't actually there. Yeah,
something
there
like
is
that.
No house next door, and I'm your uncle.
That the guy and the guy as well, the other brother, he was a Burke, wasn't he? Oh yes, a real Burke, wasn't it? And they just happened to have ritual music there, like What about this one? Music for tribal rituals and spells.
Yeah, but he only puts it on for about 3 seconds, and she goes, "No, turn it off, I'm scared," and then they don't play it again. It's ridiculous. There's also some weird stock incidental music put on it at times, isn't there?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was one of the worst ones I've
like
watched,
someone starting
actually.
A drill up in the next room.
The builders are in, but in terms of non-committal fun telly, it's quite good. I quite enjoyed it. Try and watch the one with Gareth Thomas if you can, set in the school.
Yeah, that was the first one I recorded because it was the second one they showed, wasn't it? And I mentioned to you that I saw Gareth Thomas was in it. So
he's brilliant. So that's really what I've been watching. A bit of Einar Fotmarm as well, just for good measure. Good old bit of reminds me of my days on UK Gold.
Watching it, you mean?
Watching it on UK Gold. I didn't work for UK Gold. I can't think of anything else really I've been watching.
Well, I've been watching the Avengers and the new Avengers.
Oh, yes.
I bought a couple of box sets off the market, you know what I'm saying?
Off the market. A bit of ooky goods.
No, you can just buy them. That's not bad, is it?
No.
Second hand, mate. They're very battered looking. So I got the season 4 box set. So it's John Steed and Emma Peel. Patrick McNee and Diana Rigg, yes, in black and white. And what I didn't remember that it's a very sci-fi season. It's got the Cybernauts in it, which is actually a really dull episode. The only interesting thing is these Cybernauts go. They make this sort of whipping noise when they hit people. Sounds like an enormous sneeze when I do it.
I suppose you don't really think about the fact that the Cybernauts exist in the Avengers kind of world. Really, I don't think of it as a science fiction particularly.
Yeah, well, it is. This is a very science fiction season. The Man-Eater of Surrey Green, which is Robert Banks Stewart, who wrote The Seeds of Doom for Doctor Who, a Tom Baker story about alien plant seeds coming to Earth and becoming huge, nasty plants that are going to take over everything. I think Robert Banks Stewart watched that episode of the Avengers because there are significant differences between the Man-Eater of Surrey Green and the Seeds of Doom, but there are also significant similarities as well.
It's plants that eat people, isn't it?
Yeah, and the fact that the plant seeds do come from outer space, which is very unlike the Avengers, I thought, but maybe not. There's also the grave diggers as well. I saw that one, which is a totally mad thing about radar disruption and hiding the devices in coffins and burying them and then exhuming the coffin and moving it to another place to disrupt. And basically it was Russians trying to stop Britain's early warning system for missile attack.
Classic.
But the thing that really hits me about it that I didn't remember about the Avengers is that the episode, there was another one as well where they're on a deserted airbase, and I can't remember what that was called. Anyway, is that a lot of the episodes are more or less, I would say, like 70% of it is just Steed and Mrs. Peel.
Not necessarily a bad thing, though.
No, it's not a bad thing, but I didn't realise it was so focused on them. And I always thought that they were good, but actually they're amazing. And Steed is quite eccentric. He's a little bit of a sort of Doctor Who character, really. And Diana Rigg is amazing. And it always saddens me that she shuns the memory of the Avengers. And, even when the late lovely Brian Clemens begged her to come and do an interview about it or something, she refused, and they were old working chums. And it seems so sad for her to just have such a dismissive attitude towards her past, because this, after all, and I can imagine if she was listening, I know she's a regular listener to this podcast, that this would make her blood boil, but this is what put her on the map, and you must always be grateful, I think, to things like that. I always remember the late Barbara Murray. I was in a show with her, and there were loads of fans waiting outside to get her autograph, and we said, "Oh, Barbara, there's some people for you," and she said, "Tell them to F off," and I just thought, wow, you are a piece of work, aren't you? These people have made you the star you are, and that's what you think of them. Wow. It's terrible to say that about Barbara. I'm sure she was a lovely person, and any of her relatives listening, I'm sorry to be offensive about her, but I was struck by that very uncharitable attitude. I also remember that at the time there were some builders doing some work in her house, and she came in distraught one day that in the plasterboard cementing and what they had written a very rude insult to her. And I just thought, well, the way you're behaving, I think if I were a builder, I might write that on your wall as well.
I think it is that
I think
thing
she'd
of,
been overly pedantic with them, so they decided to write something rude in the cement.
well, I think it is, it is that oh, don't bite the hand that feeds you.
No,
and you
exactly.
got to, and when we talk about the Avengers, what I think is, it's an iconic television show that's still regarded as one of the greatest television shows of that genre today. That's nothing to shun. That's nothing to be embarrassed about.
I know,
at all.
but you see, Diana Rigg, she went on to far more serious things and was and is a fabulous actor, powerful performer. And I think that, it's a bit like someone saying, "Oh, remember when you were Coco the Clown?" And there you are wanting to play, Hamlet or something.
She went on to be in The Great Muppet Caper.
Money talks, or is hell.
Well, I was watching her last night in Game of Thrones. Does a great job, absolutely superb.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah, and it's such a shame that it's a sort of. I suppose she had to jettison herself from that past. Otherwise, she felt she'd be doing that kind of nonsense all the time, and she wanted to show that she was more serious. But it's a shame because it is beautiful what she does. She is amazing. She is luminous in it. It's a superb performance. It really, and their performances really drive along what is fairly paper thin a lot of the time, but gloriously so. I mean, there's also some very good fun writing in it as well. Now then, onto the new Avengers, which I was very sceptical about when I was a teenager, and I didn't like it at all. I tried to like it, but at the time, I mean, when it came out, I remember very much, I was in my late teens and very excited about it, and audio recorded it and everything, but I just thought, oh, this isn't the same as I remember it being. So I was very, very anti it. But going back to it, I'm pleased to report, listeners, that I absolutely love it. I think it's beautiful and such fun. And the thing about both these series is Laurie Johnston's music. I mean, I didn't remember how much music, especially in the black and white series. I mean, some of the episodes, it's just non-stop music. The entire tone of it is dictated by Laurie Johnston. Amazing musician, fantastic. And in the 70s stuff, the new Avengers, he gets really wacka-chacka crazy,
Well, Laurie Johnston is one of those people, his music very much defined a lot of the programs that were popular in the 1970s.
Yeah.
He really...
The Professionals.
The Professionals, absolutely. The Professionals is where I think he really cuts his teeth and really defines what he's about. He did loads of... another thing that we talked about a few podcasts ago, he did the music for And Soon the Darkness. That film with the two, with Pamela Franklin and Michelle Treese. Yeah.
The nurses on holiday in France getting...
Yeah, which is again a very 70s film. It's he's brought in deliberately to convey that hip, young, cool kind of, girls of the time.
Girls of the time.
Girls of the time. He did Jason King.
And rolling. Yeah.
Then he sort of after The Professionals, he didn't do an awful lot after that. W1A. I don't know what that is.
Don't you?
No.
You said in a high voice. W1A. You honestly don't know what W1A is?
Not a clue. Nope.
It was a huge phenomenon.
Nope.
It was like a mockumentary about the BBC.
No, I've never seen it. Never seen it.
Wow.
I know didn't it have David Tennant in it or something?
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, maybe not. Oh, I don't know anything. There we go.
It had the bloke from Downton Abbey in it. I can't remember his name now. Hugh Bonneville.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've never seen it, so
I saw one episode of it, and it was so pin sharp accurate that I found it too depressing.
Oh, here we go. No, David Tennant was the narrator. That's why. So of course, I would have just clocked his voice. Yeah, no, that's all. That's all I can say about that.
And he did the music for that, did he? Isn't that weird?
Apparently, it says Laurie Johnston did the theme music.
Wow.
He did Siege of the Saxons, which I don't know what that is, but it looks fun.
Yeah, you'd like that. I'm pretty certain I've seen that. A sort of... Okay, well, there we are. There's the Avengers. Also, I'm watching Stranger Things. I'm in the 3rd series of that. Absolutely blinking loving it.
Not got round to series 3 yet. I've done 1 and 2.
It's great, isn't it?
Love Stranger
Those
Things.
Kids in it are amazing. Absolutely. That's what I find incredibly... Yeah,
they're all stars as well. There's no weak link. Yeah, that's the thing. Especially, pretty much with the whole show, there is no weak link. Everybody is superb. But then, what do you expect from a show which is a cultural phenomenon? Again, it's one of those ones. It's decade defining, if that makes sense.
It is, even though it's set in the 80s.
I love
the fact that they use the sparkly sort of film effect on the Stranger Things animated logo. It's like it's been optically printed rather than done with CG stuff.
But it's responsible for quite a few different things. I mean, like for example, the huge revival of Dungeons and Dragons as a hobby and a pastime is pretty much directly responsible because of Stranger Things. They've absolutely rocketed it up. It's mental. That and the internet has created this huge thing. Dungeons and Dragons is huge now. It's big money. Really,
it was always huge, but it got bigger, did it?
Oh, it sort of dwindled down over the years, and now it's massive again. It's huge. They've got Stranger Things, Dungeons and Dragons sets now and books, and that's one thing I'm really surprised. Netflix hasn't done actually as a Dungeons and Dragons series. Seems so obvious to me.
Yes, it seems so obvious that I wouldn't watch it.
You wouldn't, but it's huge. It's big money. But Stranger Things, the same with 80s music, synthesizer, stuff like that. People are really into it all.
Yeah, it's brilliant what they've done with the music. But created by the Duffer Brothers, which I don't imagine in America is such a funny word.
The Duffer Brothers.
Duffer. A duffer in Britain is someone who's a bit rubbish, if he's a bit of a duffer.
Or as the dictionary says, an incompetent or stupid person. He's an old duffer, that one, isn't he?
By the Incompetent and Stupid Person Brothers. The Umbrella, and nothing could be more further from the truth. The Umbrella Academy, I keep trying to say. I've watched that first series and it says the second series is confirmed. Yes, I was, it took us a long time to get through that, Steph and I, but we sort of... Yeah, it was okay.
I've not seen it. I know that it was created by... It was created by the singer of weird sort of gothy band My Chemical Romance.
It was a Dark Horse comic, wasn't it?
Yeah. Don't know. Have nothing to say on it and know nothing about it.
Well, I can't urge you to watch it, but it's got loads of good things in it. I'm not sure I like what it's about really particularly. Anyway, The Longest Day, which you mentioned, so I bought that on
great
iTunes or whatever they call it these days. Apple TV possibly, I don't know.
Apple Pie.
I don't understand. I'm too old to understand
old
these
brother
things.
Old.
And the interesting thing about The Longest Day is that it is full of brilliance and absolute rubbish as well. I think it's very, very clumsily written. I think it's a lot of the decisions in the scenes from a directing point of view are totally wrong. There's that stupid conversation between Richard Burton and the Welsh actor in the bar. Well, he's Welsh as well, wasn't he? And almost every line is said in exactly the wrong way for the sense of the scene. It's like Richard Burton's decided to be all moody about stuff, and that's not how the scene's written. It's really odd. There's a lot of that kind of nonsense, and there's a lot of that weird stuff where actors position themselves in a certain way so that someone else can be in a shot, and they're both talking, not looking at each other, which has obviously been... I think it's so crass, actually. I love it, but I think it's... But then you have sequences like the French attack on that town, which is done in one aerial shot, which is amazing. And when you see the D-Day landings and realise that none of that is superimposed, they actually got that many people to come ashore in landing crafts and filmed it. I mean, it's an oddity because it is very, very flawed in its storytelling. but it is also beautiful and poignant and moved me to tears a number of times as well.
I think it's
so
designed.
It's a real mixed bag. It's not like something like The Cruel Sea, which isn't about D-Day, I know, but it's a World War II story, which is perfect. I mean, it is just like a beautiful ballet of a harsh ballet of terrible war experiences. It's just beautifully done. But The Longest Day, it's a bit clunky, I feel. And it's also directed by several different people, isn't it?
I think its purpose is not to be a great drama. Its purpose is to show war, and do the big fighting things. And it wants to be better than it is. But I don't think it's designed to move us in those ways. It's the same with things like
it's a shame that it didn't design itself to do those things. It could have been such a better film.
It's like the Battle of Britain movie. That there are some bits in it which are interesting, but a lot of it is about the rousing action scenes and explosions. And
I think the Battle of Britain is better.
It is better.
Put it. I think yeah, I definitely think that's better. But I know what you mean. It's a sort of historical event movie, isn't it? It's like they're trying to record it, as it were.
Absolutely. It's not. Yeah, I don't think it's designed necessarily to move you. That film, I never got those vibes from it. There are so many good all those old films though. There are some brilliant old war films. I love Bridge Over the River Kwai.
Yeah.
I think
although I find that so upsetting, I don't think I could ever watch it again. A more modern one is A Bridge Too Far, since we're talking about bridges. All bridge films, which has the most amazing theme tune. I love it because it's a beautiful piece of music that changes from jolly to sad to dramatic. It's a fantastic melody. That who wrote it?
Oh gosh, now you're giving me a question. Great film. I love the bit.
It's great.
Bridge Too Far is a superb film. I think there are standout films for me, war films.
Bridge Too Far was last of its kind.
Of those old.
Yeah.
Well, then it moves. Then war films move, don't they? And you go into the territory of Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, those realistic war films, which are all about, I think actually, and again, it's moved now. We've gone towards the Dunkirk, which I think is a superb film.
Oh yes.
And what I would love to see, and there's talks of I think Ridley Scott doing it or something, is they want to do another Battle of Britain film, which I think would be amazing now. I think that would be a great thing because there's so many good stories to tell. It's
a shame that Ridley Scott does it, because Ridley Scott is not very good at emotional content. He just makes everything look beautiful, doesn't he?
And again, this is the Longest Day syndrome, isn't it? It'll be a real spectacle. It'll look gorgeous, but will it have the depth?
I would like Christopher Nolan to do it instead.
God, yeah, Christopher Nolan would be good. That would be the one, wouldn't it? Get Hans
Zimmer.
I
loved Dunkirk. I think it's an amazing piece of work, Dunkirk. Absolutely amazing.
I adore it. It's one of those films I can watch it again and again and again, and it still gets me.
Time's getting on. I think we'd better phone Jamie.
Yes, I think.
Now, what are we going to talk to Jamie about? Is there any Anderson question we've always wanted to ask him?
Well, this is a very good thing. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but hold on.
What's his favourite Jerry Anderson thing?
Terrorhawks.
Is it?
I bet it is.
Hello.
I'm literally about to start an interview with somebody, but I've got 12 seconds.
Okay, who are you going to interview? Can you reveal?
Voice actor Mark Silk.
Oh, what did he do?
He's done all sorts of stuff, but he does Scooby and Shaggy on Scooby-Doo now.
Does he? Wow.
Good gig.
I'm a huge fan of him.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll tell him.
Do, please. And he'll say, I've never heard of the Daleks. The Daleks.
Probably.
I don't know whether I've ever asked you what your favourite Jerry Anderson series is.
No, I don't think you have. Are you going to ask that?
Yes, what's your favourite Jerry Anderson series, Jamie?
Well, just because I grew up just after it was made, just Terrorhawks.
It is Terrorhawks. That's what I said. Benji said.
Yeah, but just because it was everywhere. It was the first experience I got, and it's quite often the first thing you experience means a lot to you, isn't it? So.
That's true. Yeah. It's rather touching. Well, it's lucky you made Terror Horse for Big Finish then, isn't it?
Yeah, funny that, isn't it?
Benji, did you have a question before he has to go?
I can do it quickly, yeah.
All right. Oh, you looked like you were poised for one, but now he's looking one up.
Poised for interrogation.
Okay.
I've said 2 ticks to Mark, and he said take 3, so it got slightly longer than anticipated.
Okay, what are you too
How long
old
does it
for
take?
but still enjoy?
Well,
Playing pranks in restaurants, maybe, Jamie?
oh, that could be a thing. Yeah, yeah. But I think pranks is probably quite a good answer. Thanks for answering that for me.
Have we ever revealed what these pranks are? Or
I know, but what if we do and there's somebody who owns a restaurant listening and then we get in terrible trouble?
Yeah, best not mention it. Yeah, keep it.
I play pranks regularly on Nick Briggs, and they often come off in quite a fun way.
And
Or
I
say
usually
no
get
more.
I usually get the photo evidence afterwards.
He's seen, yeah. So now we can't reveal the nature of the prank.
All right, well, I think that's 3 ticks.
Yeah, I think 3 ticks are over now, so I better go do my thing. So good luck with the rest of your
Thank
thing.
you. And I feel good that I've refined exactly what a tick is now.
Yeah,
It was
Yeah.
that
we can
length
just
of time.
take this period of time and divide it by 3, and then we know what a tick is.
Brilliant.
Problem solved.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Well, we were lucky to catch him there,
Yeah, we
weren't
were,
we?
yeah, sharp as anything, aren't
What are we
we?
going to be talking about next week?
What are we going to be talking about next week? Well, I suppose we have to pick something, don't we?
Well, that's what I mean.
I reckon we should do Cracker.
Okay, what, like the first episode?
The first episode of Cracker, because you messaged me, didn't you, to say you'd purchased the
yes.
box set. Well, I went to my friend's house because I'd lent them my box set of Cracker, and I've got it back. And it's right behind me. It's on that
what a
chair
cracker.
there. So I'm thinking that would be a great one because I love Cracker and I've got a lot to say about it. And anybody who hasn't watched it, it's a great detective show.
Yes.
From
yes.
the 90s. Again,
Changed everything.
decade-defining television.
Correct.
And
I
so
agree.
I'm
So
well
we've
up
done
for
our
that.
review already without watching it.
Yeah.
So listen, Colin Smith, who does the covers, that's what to put on the cover.
Cracker.
And we'll try and get in touch with Jamie again, obviously, and we'll try and do a few emails as well. Yeah.
Sounds stunning to me. Well, in that case, we better get nice and close here. Shubby-dubby-doo. Well, it's been a ride. It's a pleasure talking to you, Nick. Pleasure listening
mate.
with you all, listeners.
Thanks.
And goodbye.
Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk.